This morning, Pfizer started giving its first COVID booster shots in a new trial. That's one of three headlines we're following for you tonight. The company is studying what happens when a third shot is given with another vaccine, one that can help prevent things like pneumonia. Pfizer wants to see if these booster shots are safe to give at the same time. Some people will get both shots, others will get one and a placebo. The study will last for 6 months. The Pfizer and AstraZeneca coronavirus vaccines appear to be effective against the variant first identified in India. Researchers found the Pfizer vaccine was 88% effective against symptomatic disease once a person was fully vaccinated. The two-dose AstraZeneca vaccine was 60% effective against the new variant. The AstraZeneca vaccine is not yet authorized in the United States. Mass vaccination centers began operating in Tokyo and Osaka, Japan today as part of the country's efforts to speed up its vaccine rollout. Starting next week, the two centers will operate at their full respective capacities of 10,000 and 5,000 shots a day. U.S. pharmaceutical firm Moderna's vaccines, which the Japanese government approved last week, are now going to be used at both of those mass vaccine venues. This comes now that we're just 60 days away from the start of the postponed Tokyo Olympic Games.